That is a very good question. I don't know, 'cause I don't know how it's gonna end, and it hasn't happened. I hope that they'll find the person that did it still alive. In a perfect world, it wouldn't happen, but it did. Semi-perfect world, I would hope to find the person that did it, and they prosecute, even though that there's no such thing as closure for this. There is no such thing as justice. She's been dead for, my entire life. I'm 48. She's been dead for 47 years. There is no justice, but I would like a semblance of justice, and I would like an explanation from the person that did it. Why? Why did you have to take this poor woman whose life was nothing but crap and end it? Because it sure the hell wasn't a mercy.
That's Krissi Haas, the daughter of Wilma June Nissen, whose 1978 murder is still unsolved. This is the Silver Linings Handbook podcast. I'm Jason Blair. Born in October 1954 in San Francisco, California, Wilma June Nissen experienced severe neglect as a child. At an age when most children were attending elementary school, Wilma did not show up and was not enrolled in classes. Wilma's mother left the family when she was 8 years old. By age 9, she was living in a car with her father, who would send her out to panhandle and beg for money. Her absence from school prompted an investigation where the authorities discovered that her father had been keeping her in a closet for extended periods of time. By the age of 10, she entered foster care. She spent years in multiple foster homes, where life was reportedly more stable. After Wilma aged out of the foster care system, she struggled to support herself. She struggled to find the work and stability that had been absent from so much of her childhood. By adulthood, there were financial struggles, and by her early 20s, at the very least, she turned to sex work to survive. In 1977, Wilma's daughter, Krissi, was born in Southern California. She was Wilma's third child by the time Wilma was 22 years old. Wilma put Krissi up for adoption, and Wilma's prior foster parents came to the hospital and picked Krissi up and later adopted her. She was only about a year old when her mother went missing. From California, her mother had made her way to Atlanta, and then someone in Atlanta convinced her to go with them to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Sometime several months later, in the summer of 1978, the police believe Wilma disappeared. Her absence went unnoticed by the system designed to protect vulnerable people. On October 4th of that year, hunters discovered Wilma's body in a ditch off a gravel road in a bed of 6-foot-tall weeds in a rural area outside of Rock Rapids, Iowa. She was partially clothed, her jawbone and most of her teeth were missing, and what investigators concluded were signs of brutal violence. The authorities also concluded that she had likely been killed somewhere else and had been dumped at the site. The violence of her death contrasted sharply with the silence that came before and that followed when she was buried as a Jane Doe in the Rockview Cemetery in Rock Rapids, her identity unknown for nearly 3 decades. For 27 years, her grave marked her only as an unidentified woman. But in the early 2000s, a cold case review was opened. Back in the 1970s, it was virtually impossible to search fingerprints nationwide. But in 2006, a nationwide fingerprint search that matched an arrest record in California restored her name, confirming that she was Wilma June Nissen. Krissi found out about her mom's identification from a small article that was sent to her by a friend. At the moment Krissi received that note, she had thought that her mom had simply disappeared and hadn't even imagined that she could have been murdered. At the time of Wilma's disappearance, she worked for an escort service that went by the name Playgirls and Playmates, which served Sioux Falls in northwest Iowa. Years later, law enforcement identified at least two suspects, publicly announcing that the two women, one who went by the name Sugar and the other who went by the name Peaches, were suspects in the investigation. Today, Krissi is joining me to discuss her mother's life and her death, and her fight for justice for the mom she has come to know much more deeply in death than she ever did in life. So, Krissi, I just wanted to thank you for coming on and joining me. I, kept on seeing posts about your mom on Twitter, on Facebook, and they really sort of captured my attention. And eventually I saw a good friend of mine post about it, who I was lucky enough to have introduce me to you. And, I feel like for a lot of my listeners, your mom's story, your story sort of touches on a lot of, I think, topics that they care about. And by that, I mean, we've explored things like the foster care system, we've explored adoption, and we certainly explore a lot about crime from the lens of what it says about us as a society and how we can handle things better. Um, and, I really saw all of those things coming together. And then as I researched and learned a little bit more about your story and your fight, I was really impressed, I think, both by what you are doing when it comes to your mom's case, but also like raising your voice to make arguments that there's got to be a better way that we work with the loved ones of people. So I really appreciate that work. And I also appreciate you coming on, being willing to talk. So.
Thank you very much for having me on. I Anyway, I get my mom's story out there and light a fire under the powers that be.
I completely.
I say things I shouldn't say, but I've already pissed them off. So
Well, you're in good company in the stay things you shouldn't say department here. One of the things that I think really struck me about your story, I so much of your life, for a lot of us, so much of our life is shaped by our parents. And so much of your life was shaped by the absence and mystery of your biological mother. And, in some ways, for those who were around her at the time that she disappeared in 1978. But for you, she disappeared long before that. And, so for a lot of people, it was 27 years, or some people, 27 years, they had not, had any contact with her. But for your entire life, you hadn't. And I wanted to start by asking you just a little bit about like what kind of impact that had on you growing up as a child and then as a young woman.
I never was angry with her for putting it for adoption. I want to put that out first. Because a lot of people are angry because, it's like, no, I was adopted. I was adopted by her final foster family. They fibbed a lot about her upbringing, but it's okay. Um, I wondered about her, and sorry, I'm a mess. You mentioned about the how we're shaped. I always wonder if it's nature or nurture because from I think 15 until she aged out at 18, she was raised by my adoptive family, and my adoptive family actually put me into the system when I was 15 because I was so much of a handful. So from 15 to 18, I was away from them.
Them. They're like the merry-go-round of your family.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting though that being adopted by your mom's former foster family, it seems kind of wild, but
It's
you'd be surprised. Like I have a good friend of mine. He and his wife adopted a kid, and then the same woman had another kid. And then eventually they had 6 of them from the same woman. And I was asking him, like, at what point are you going to stop, man? And he was like, once you become tied to one of them, you're tied to all of them. They
oh,
become
that's
a
so
part of
awesome.
Yeah. And I thought that was kind of beautiful.
That is.
Yeah,
That's
it
really
just
beautiful.
it really moved me. And I thought of that when I thought of your foster parents responding, after it's hard to say what exactly happened with you, but after your mom gave you up, that I guess their caring for her, their love for her, you were like family to them.
I don't know because I was told so many fibs by them.
Hmm.
And a little TMI, they told me that I remember because I hated school. I was that problem child. I was that child you hope you never have. And I remember in middle school, I had a parent teacher conference because I ditched a lot of school. And my dad shows up and tells them, "Well, we think her mom was retarded, so we think she might be too."
Mm. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so kind of threw me.
He
So
may not have been using the clinical definition there.
yeah,
What
yeah,
he,
that was in the 90s. So
what he may have been referring to is what we now commonly call the adolescence.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. But I mean, he was in his late 80s, so yeah,
from a different
he
from a
just
different time, not to excuse it.
yeah.
But
I actually found out that my biological mother's mother that walked out on her had said that same thing about her to law enforcement. She had said
interesting.
that Wilma was retarded.
Interesting.
This is a child that she walked out on when this kid was like barely 8 years old and never had been allowed to go to school.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, oh, I wish you were still alive so I could slap you.
Did you mentioned that they had told you some fibs about your mom. Or your adoption, I guess, or in you ending up becoming foster. What did you know about your mom when you were a kid?
I knew that my adopted parents had fostered her, but they made it sound like they had her whole life.
Mm.
Uh, and that's all. They wouldn't tell me anything about her. I mean, they wouldn't tell me anything. I had to, being the little hellion I was, I had to snoop to find her name. I found
How
her
long
name
did
and found
that
a
take?
photo. Well, I just came across it one day snooping through this desk that had a bunch of ancient paperwork in it, and I
Mm.
found my original birth certificate and a
Oh,
photo of her,
okay.
which I confronted my adopted parents with, and they immediately took it away. But
So it really wasn't even until you were 11 that you even knew your mom's name.
mhm,
Wow. What did
I did my my adopted mom. She wasn't well. She basically was in a wheelchair from the time I got out of a stroller.
okay.
But she was on a lot of medications, and she would occasionally let something slip. Like she let me know that my mom went by the name Amy.
Mm, at some point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes, and she went by the name Boots. I found that out looking through those papers.
And then what did it feel like when you saw the picture for the first time?
I was just like, "Is that my mom?"
Yeah.
I saw the photo, and I kind of just knew it was.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't think I looked like her, but I was like, that's got to be that's her,
It's gotta be her.
and it was.
Yeah. And so then after the point where you're 11, did anyone start to open up more about her? Or so really through your teenage years and your adolescence, it remained this kind of just mystery. Where did I come from? One of the things, and I tend to think it's like a blessing that we have a foster care system and we have people who are willing to adopt. But I think one of the challenges, one of the yearnings I think we all have as humans as we're trying to find our belonging and our space in this world. And I don't think it's just our biological family. It could be our ethnicity, or it could be a regional thing, or it could be whatever. We yearn to know where we came from because, to your point that you were making before about nature versus nurture, I think we associate where we came from, whether it's a place or people or family, with it, and I think there's a lot of evidence for this, it being a part of us. And it's really hard to have a ton of question marks um
There's a
about.
natural curiosity
Yep.
to where, I mean, who, where, it's hard to
To it.
voice
Yeah.
it.
Well, I think about my own life. I know who my biological parents are, and it's confirmed by DNA because I really questioned it because they're really sweet people, and I'm less of one. But um, we used to joke when I was a kid of what milkman dropped me off at the door. They didn't joke, I joked. Um, but even in understanding and knowing a lot of my parents' history, there's the natural tendency or desire to understand my grandparents' history. And then when I rounded the corner on that, of course, more information comes. Then I want to know my great grandparents' history. And, it's just, what I would say is, in doing all that work and looking into those things and understanding, when I go back 3 generations of my family, I begin to get a real clear picture of why, like, me and my brother are the way that we are. My dad is the way that he is. A lot of that's tied into the history. But one of the things that I really believe, before my mom passed away, I was talking to her about this. No, thank you.
You're welcome.
And yeah, she was amazing. Or is amazing because she's still inside me. Um, but, I was talking to her about how frustrating it is. Even though people are getting older, it's still hard, like in different corners, to pry different things out, even though some of them are around. And it just made me think, as I was thinking about that recently and thinking about your story, what if I had no door to knock on? What if I didn't know where to go to find out? It's sort of, it it kind of tips the balance in a way where it's almost like you're restarting the family,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's weird. It's I've got a big conflict in my head of nature versus nurture because her final foster family was my, first family. And her and I have so many things that I've found out since she was identified that we have in common, such as horrible choices as young adults and being pains
I
in the ass.
think I think you share that in common with most of us.
But her and and I truly believe I would have had maybe not a mother relationship with her, but she did, like I said, she did stay in touch with all of her foster families. Obviously, she stayed in touch with the people that raised me because they adopted me. They brought me home from the hospital as a preemie. I was, my mom liked to drop kids at 7 months. So I was 2 pounds when I was born.
Wow.
So it was prearranged.
Wow.
So she stayed in touch. I would have met her. I may have just been friends with her, or we would have bought, like, cats and dogs because
Hmm.
we're so similar. But I feel like I know her more now than I ever did growing up. And I feel like I almost feel this is going to sound so stupid, but I almost feel like she's protected me because she never got a break in life.
Mm.
She had to fight from the time she was born to survive.
Well,
And
to me, it doesn't sound stupid because, to some extent, you think about what a good parent or a loving parent does is they protect their kid. And, if you had asked me 3 years ago, could my parents like spiritually protect me on some level when they weren't here, I would have been very skeptical of that idea. I've revised my opinion since. I mean, I
Understandable.
really have. We have our like angels.
Yes.
Uh,
I started seeing a therapist recently because I've been I overstimulate myself fighting on my mom's case until to the
mhm.
point that I'm just like, I'm going to bed for the next 6 months, you know? And,
Right.
I told her the stuff that I've done, and I told her about my mom, and she's like, "You've got a guardian angel." I'm like, "I know, I should be dead." She's like, "You should be dead so many times." I'm like, "Mhm." So, I really think, um, I really feel that I mean, I was raised very Catholic, so I'm kinda like, Um, but I kinda feel like I got the luck that she didn't, like, she gave me her luck.
Mm.
Like, I've got a piece of her soul that I need to protect. I had gone hard and heavy, around 2020, 2021, really advocating for her, uh, because the sheriff, uh, that was amazing, Sheriff Blumendahl that identified her was there when she was he was the reason she got identified. Um, when he retired, the next sheriff really didn't
Do
that
as
there was
well.
no communication, and the current sheriff, I kind of irritated a bit. We'll just say that. Um, but I was so I stopped for a while, and I was super super depressed. I don't remember if it was last winter or the winter before that, but I was just in such a depressive state, and I thought one day I need to fight for my mom, and I feel like she saved my life
Mm.
by fighting for hers, for justice
Right.
for hers.
Right. That in some ways, some of what's brought your life together has been the actual search for her. So in a way, in her death, she kind of is helping save you once
Yeah.
she was identified. That's really interesting. And it makes complete sense because she's giving you purpose.
Yes.
And, we're all, I think, in life at greater risk when we don't have purpose. I'm a big believer in the idea that the one thing all humans have in common, you can be different color, different race, you can be male, female, whatever category or however you want to separate people, but we all share suffering, right?
Yes.
That's the one thing that we all share. And I'm a big believer in the idea, like someone like your mom went through suffering.
Yeah, she did. That's all she
Yeah.
knew.
Yeah. And there's something about that suffering that can unite us in a way and connect us in ways that are hard. And even learning the story of her life probably helps you learn lessons or step back and have perspective. I was going to ask you, you know, you didn't learn much about your mom as a child. Do you feel as if you've learned more about her in her death and become closer to her in her death than
Absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely. I have learned so much more about her, and I feel again, this is gonna sound really stupid, but I feel almost like we're sisters. I feel like she's a part of me, like she's with me. And then I feel stupid because I'm like, she had other kids, she didn't keep them, and but
Why do you feel stupid about that?
um I don't know.
Mm.
I just I personal I'm just I have personal issues. I have self-esteem issues. I have all the issues that, you'd expect from a crazy cat lady, middle-aged crazy cat lady.
I am well, I mean, I think, you know, well, we all struggle with different things. I think one of the things about sort of struggling and suffering is that we kind of, I think in society, we learn how to like paper that stuff over and to mask it. But if you get to know anyone well enough. I mean, and I mean anyone.
Uh-huh.
Um, I mean, like, whoever you could possibly imagine. What I think, Longfellow said that if you could look at the secret history of all your enemies, you would find such sadness and sorrow to disarm all hostilities. I think everyone suffers and everyone struggles, and we don't let other people in on it as much.
It's the day and age of social media, which I've been banned off of. Woohoo. Uh, a whole nother mom story, but people post all these happy things, their vacations and their kids and their this and their that. They never post their struggles.
Yeah,
And everybody has struggles. Everybody has sorrows and trauma, and we just nobody's life is perfect. I don't care what you put out there. If you put out that your life is perfect, you are lying.
right, right. And I mean, one of the things that I do also wonder about in sort of like thinking about just getting to know your mom, it it's relatively, in the grand scheme of things, relatively recent because your mom disappeared, somewhere for you guys in the late 70s, 1977, 78. She actually, we now know, disappeared sometime in she disappeared. We now know she disappeared sometime in 1978, but it took 27 years
Yeah,
to identify her. Did you even have any clues to where she might be? Did you
absolutely
search on
not.
your own?
I searched for her, but I mean, she was, they didn't know who she was. The fact that I found out what had happened to her was, again, it was a fluke, but it's kind of like I've been thinking about it lately and how it's just kind of crazy how it worked out. Um, a friend of mine from that I'd known since middle school, his mom lived close to me, and she saw this small article in a local newspaper that said they'd identified a Jane Doe in this small town in Iowa, from an arrest record in Long Beach. And I mean, this is a tiny little article in a local newspaper. It's not like, you know, the LA Times or something. It was just,
Right.
I think it was the Long Beach Press Telegram. It's a big enough
Mhm.
paper, but not that big. And
Yep.
she happened to see it and happened to know her name and happened to know me and came over to my house and was like, "Hey, what's your mom's name?" And I'm like, "You know it." And she's like, "What's your mom's name?" So I told her, and she's like, "Oh my god, they bet she's dead." And so I found out that way. I
Wow.
never had imagined that. I
Wow.
always figured that I would, if I found her, she would have, had a family of her own, and I could, I pictured us getting to know each other, sitting on a porch drinking coffee or something.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I imagine that must have like dramatically shifted things for you because I just didn't think about it or I didn't think about it until you just said that. That for you, like the most logical explanation of what happened to your mom would be that she just walked off. She just
yeah,
walked off from her family and she started a new life.
yeah. I
Like,
figured she just wasn't ready to take care of me. I didn't know I had brothers before me. I didn't know anything about her history. I just figured she wasn't ready for me and made sure I had parents and bailed.
so you hadn't even really contemplated the idea of
I never would have
being
in a
dead.
million years imagined that she had been murdered. Never.
Did it change something for you? Like, because I wonder whether there's some element of losing your parent like that where you feel like a sense of abandonment. Even if you understand why they did it, there's this sense of abandonment. But then also to find out that within a year or so of when she left you, she was already gone. That really must change the way that you think about some things.
I don't feel a sense of abandonment. Like I said, I have no hostility, anger, resentment, nothing towards her for putting me up for adoption.
Hmm.
None. However, the person that took her life, um, I have hostility towards them.
Right.
Um,
They took away the opportunity.
They not only did they take away the opportunity for me, for her, but she had had such an awful, awful, tragic life, and then to have it end that way.
Right.
The sheriff's department in Rock Rapids, that's the county seat of Lyon County. So they found her in Lyon County, and it's this little adorable town in northwest Iowa near South Dakota, really close to Sioux Falls. And the sheriff that the reason she was identified was because of Sheriff Blythe Blumendahl, who is an amazing human being. I think of him as a cowboy because he was like, nah, this happened in my town. I'm going to find out what happened.
So he was the sheriff in the early 2000s,
Mhm.
early to mid
Yep.
2000s.
Him and Detective Jerry Berkey were amazing.
And I had heard they had opened a cold case review because I don't know if it was at the time, but we know it is now. But this was either the one cold case they had in the county or one of just a handful of cold cases they had.
It is the only murder cold case currently, and then I believe
Okay.
in that county. Like I said, it's a really close knit community, small community. When I go up there, there's one motel,
Okay. So it's
but they're
truly
super sweet. They're really nice. However, since Sheriff Blumendahl had to retire, I have had difficulty with communication.
So back when you originally got that article and you saw that, what was the next step for you? How old were you at the time?
28. I just turned 28.
Okay. Okay. So you're in your late 20s at that time. You get this clipping or this article
Mhm.
from your family friends. And then did you end up reaching out to the police in Iowa? Did they even know about you all at this point or her
They had
family? So
just
they didn't.
identified her
Okay.
to the fingerprint. She'd been arrested in Long Beach for prostitution, and that's how they matched a fingerprint. And I called them, and they're like, "Will you go take a DNA test?" And I'm like, "Sure."
Okay.
And I was a mess of a human being myself at that time, so I had to. It was okay, not to make it all about me, but I was actually a drug addict. I was a meth addict for a long
Hmm.
time, and I was coming off of it, fighting for my house,
Right.
fighting for my adopted dad. His son took him and um, hired a shady lawyer that I had cops, the swing shift cops from the town I'm from, were coming in with guns pointed at me,
Oh, wow.
telling me I finally left the house, even though I had a power of attorney and paperwork proving that because my mom had already passed away and my mom and my dad had signed this. But the son, of course, had more money than me, and I was coming off drugs and
Right.
it's a shit show. But I finally left when cops came in and said the lawyer that he'd hired said if I was there the next day at noon, nobody would ever find my body.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's fun, huh?
It's a very
That's a
unlawyerly
small,
thing
yeah,
to
small
say.
little Orange County beach town.
Right.
Good
It's
times.
a very unlawyerly thing to say.
very, very sketchy lawyerly thing to say.
Right.
But so I made sure
What
not go during the swing shift,
were you
and
like a lawyer for the mob? What's
right, I'm
that?
like, we're in like, yeah, it was so shady. Oh, and then I found out one of the cops on that shift ended up owning the house that I was supposed to own.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, sorry.
So life is
Traumatized.
a mess at this point.
Yeah, I
A
was an
genuine mess.
absolute shit show, and that's when I found out about my mom.
Wow. That's
So
quite a
I was,
combo.
yeah, I was like, oh, so it's kind of all a blur.
Uh-huh.
Everything was a mess. Um, but I was still in the house at that time. I went down on the day shift to make sure and let them swab me for DNA, and they were able to do it. And I didn't know DNA could be done that fast, but within like 24 hours, they're like, "Yep, that's your mom."
It was a match. It was identified. Yeah, and was the issue in terms of the fingerprints? I know in the late 1970s, A lot of fingerprint matching was manual. Like I know that the way the FBI did it was they had like file cabinets in the basement and they would
Or-
run them and then they would send pictures of them, or not pictures of them, copies of them to different states. And that even as we automated fingerprinting, it still took time to get all the old fingerprints in the system. And then it doesn't work the way that on CSI
Yeah.
or other shows where there all these fingerprints are just automatically running against each other.
Yeah.
You have to
I mean,
actually manually run them.
yeah, it's more like the old Sherlock Holmes,
Right.
you know,
Yes, right.
magnifying glass.
Magnifying glass. Yeah. And then even when they match, you still have to confirm them after that.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it was the sheriff's office saying, okay, what haven't we done on this case, or what has changed, or
It
what
was,
tools exist now that didn't exist before?
I think, now I don't know for sure. I think I read somewhere that her case, it wasn't closed, but it wasn't being investigated before Sheriff Blumendahl decided run those fingerprints again
Yeah.
and run them nationwide
Okay.
because they weren't, back when they weren't able to, they didn't have computers. They weren't able to run them nationwide.
Right.
In 2006, they were. And I believe it was January 31st, 2006, is when they came up with the match. And I don't remember the exact date that I saw the article, but as soon as I saw it, I knew it was her. And then there was this, oh God, I know they try to do artist reconstructions
Mm-hmm.
a little off so that you get that, so it makes an impression, so you get that uncanny valley kind of, so you remember it.
Yeah.
But I hadn't seen many photos of my mom.
Mm.
And I saw a mugshot and the reconstruction. And the reconstruction, I appreciate the lady that did it. It was like the second one she did. And I think she stopped after that because it was like so traumatic for her. It was horrifying for me because I was already a mess. And it was creepy.
Yeah.
But I mean, when they found my mom, I saw an article um, that, I mean, she was found face down in a ditch, and when authorities turned her over, she didn't have a face. Her
Decompensation.
lower jaw was completely gone.
Right.
I don't know if it was all of her teeth or all but two of her upper teeth were gone, and her face was just gone.
So they were thinking either she was brutally beaten or somebody was trying to make it hard to identify her.
Um,
Something
they
along
won't
those
tell me.
lines. Yeah.
They just all I hear from law enforcement lately is that it was extremely specific and extremely brutal.
Mm.
She was nude from the waist up, they said, except for she had a um, friendship ring, like a little,
Mm-hmm.
gumball machine kind of, fake gold and silver ring on, and no top. And her pants and underwear were around her left leg. I don't know if they were pulled or torn.
Mm.
And white calf length zip up go go boots.
Ah,
I
interesting.
want to know how her go go boots were in perfect condition and her body was demolished.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of things in there, and listening to that story where, a lot of those things could tell you the story of what happened, or it could also be somebody trying to make it look like it's an assortment of different things. That's a, so in the beginning, it sounds like law enforcement, the sheriff that you mentioned, they were a little bit more open and a
They were
little bit more
amazing.
communicative.
Yeah,
And
they didn't tell me anything I wasn't allowed to know,
right.
no matter
That
how
would
much I
hurt the
begged.
investigation, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and I get it. I mean, I understand, but they would talk to me when they exhumed her in 2007. They let me know I wasn't. I was too much of a mess. When they did have a memorial when they, um,
Assumed her.
or no, when they I'm sorry, when they identified her, they did have a memorial for her shortly after, and a bunch of people showed up. It was really sweet. I
Mm.
did not go. I was not in the right headspace. I couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I did end up moving to Kansas City from California shortly after that, and went up and met the sheriff and the detective, and he was kind to me. I expected them, I got tattoos. I had my hair dyed black. I was a little chunkier then. I'm all gouged out. I'm like, they're gonna think I'm the devil. And they were nice to me. They didn't treat me any different than anyone else. And
You clearly had not spent enough time in the Midwest before that.
but like I totally expect and I just come from, all this. I had one lovely podcaster that was like, how did you go from the police treating you like they did with your house to this other and I'm like, different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's people.
Yeah.
People are gonna be assholes.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if they're cops or not. It doesn't mean they're all
Humans.
yeah. Humans are flawed.
Humans.
Yeah,
Humans.
humans.
Yeah.
That's why I like cats.
Yeah. I'm a big cat fan too myself. I am one of the things that I was kind of wondering about and thinking about that whole journey. So, they were open with you about what they could be. I remember reading that the sheriff had said at one point that they had at least, a good number of suspects, somewhere around 8 or more. And it sounds like over the years they narrowed the list of suspects down over some time. But it sounds like they had a good idea of who some of your mom's associates were and some interconnection. So they really worked hard, it sounds like, to go
Oh yes.
back and put together the pieces of what was happening.
Yeah.
Do you know how that list of suspects were developed? Like,
Unfortunately, I don't know like the full. I saw the timeline. Sheriff Blumendahl had a wall full of, and it was entirely dedicated to solving my mom's case.
Mm,
But I don't know. I know that they, I mean, they went everywhere. They went to the prison that what's his name? Is it the truck stop killer? Oh God, I forget. There was a serial killer that lived in Sioux Falls
mm,
around the time. Interviewed him, cleared him. They found out more about my mom than I ever knew,
yeah.
and they found out the escort agency that the suspects that are still current suspects um work for, and I somehow they got their little black book.
Right. Right.
And,
They were able to even expand their aperture and potential
and I
people.
the two suspects, and I feel in my soul that there is also a male involved somehow. It could be a pimp or a client, I don't know. But there were two escorts. My mom was working for an escort agency again. I truly feel that she met someone in Atlanta that talked her into or trafficked her into going to Sioux Falls, because who the hell goes to Sioux Falls, South Dakota for no reason? No offense to anyone in Sioux Falls, but like she didn't
I
have a
don't know.
car. She hitchhiked everywhere. She was with this guy living in his mom's house, and this guy was twice her age. I would have done the same damn thing. Honestly, at 23, I would have done the same. In fact, I think I did almost do the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. I divorced my husband and moved with an ex-boyfriend in San Luis. So
Yeah.
I totally think someone either trafficked her or just hustled her into going with them to go work for this escort service because she wanted to go home.
Have you had the chance to talk to anyone who knew her while she was in Sioux Falls or in Atlanta yet? Or is that something you just can't do until they make progress on the investigation?
She was in Atlanta for such a short time.
Mhm.
I mean, I think 2 weeks, that
Okay.
nobody I don't think anybody knows her except for the guy that she was there with, who's now deceased.
Right.
And since he was twice her age then, I'm guessing his mother's deceased as well. Um, she was in Sioux Falls working for that service, but I don't, I mean, she got there in either, February or March and was dead by roughly August.
August. So it
So
was a very
she,
short time.
yeah.
But clearly, there are people who are there who remember people and
I
remember the
mean,
organization.
there may be people that she met that, okay. Um, I'm going to guess most of the people she met were either other sex workers or
Mm.
clients,
Right.
and they don't have a tendency to remember each other well unless they know each other well.
Or there's a really good reason to
Yeah,
remember the incident.
exactly, or unless they're involved.
Yeah. And how do you have any idea of how the police honed in on the two suspects that you mentioned? One went by the nickname Peaches, one
Mhm.
went by the nickname Sugar, and I had read that they, at least as of the last time you got a real good update, they didn't necessarily know who Peaches was. I
Mhm.
mean, but they knew who Sugar was,
They
what
know
her real
exactly who
name,
she is,
where she
where she
is.
lives,
Mhm.
her name, everything else. I actually know her first name because I heard it slip, but I won't say it because out of respect to the person that let it slip.
Mhm. Do you
Um,
do
I,
you
it's just her first name.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask, do you do you know anything about her or how they became suspects? Why them out of all the
I
potential?
was told that they were known for robbing other escorts and clients.
Mm,
And there was a man that lived in Lyon County that would bring in escorts and dancers and have good old 70s sex parties frequently. And that was a service he used. I was told at one point that right after my mom was suspected of being murdered when they found the body and stuff, um, that these two women, I mean, they were real close. These two women had flown to the Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada area,
mhm, mhm. Just
and I
north of
tried to find
Lawrence and
yeah, I,
yeah.
I tried to find any information, and I asked the current sheriff, "So is that true? Because I don't want to give any false information. I want facts." And he said, "Well, just say allegedly." He's not. He doesn't like me much.
So at some point soon after, are you saying like soon after your mom died, they went to Thunder Bay?
They. I was originally told they fled the country and went to Thunder Bay.
Pretty quickly? Wow.
Yes, and then came back because one of them, I can't remember which one of them stabbed someone. I don't know if it was a fatal stabbing, but they did stab someone and then they came back.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's
Yeah.
definitely fits as interesting.
And they had a history of this and not of murder, but of robbing.
Robin.
And we're not afraid to use violence.
Right. So they have some documented history of them being involved in violence. And sort of, I imagine from a police perspective, when they're hearing that, these are potential suspects or potential people who might know who. And so it sounds like the police know something we don't know that has them focused on them, though. Very focused on them.
The the 3 failed polygraph tests make me I'm like, "Let me talk to her. Let me get a feel for her. Let me just I'm not gonna hurt she's an old woman, I'm not gonna hurt her. I just wanna talk to her and, she may know something, be afraid,
Yeah.
or she might have done it. I don't know. They don't know."
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason. I always say to people, well, if you've had 3 failed polygraph tests, you've had like 3 more than I'm willing to take in the rest of my life. But,
Right?
there's a reason why she's continuing to talk, and there's, probably something that
I mean, she could have been being trafficked as well. I I'm guessing she was. I Escort services are basically glorified pimps. I worked for one for a minute in Vegas, and they don't care about your well-being as long as they get their money.
right.
Like I said, I made a lot of the same bad decisions in my early 20s.
Don't we all? We repeat our parents' bad decisions. I don't rank bad decisions. Otherwise, I would be in trouble. No, but I mean, it's. I mean, the truth is, and this actually brings me to, I think, one of the challenges in general about getting attention for cases like these. And I know you've gotten a lot of attention for your mom's case.
I'm
You
trying.
had NBC feature it.
That
You
was
know,
phenomenal.
yeah, there've been some really good, I feel like some good reporting around it, and I can see the advocacy behind it and the hook behind it. But one of the things that I find really challenging, and you can see this in really obvious spaces like missing and murdered Indigenous women, but also you can see it in cases about women from Appalachia or men who end up
Hmm.
getting 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 murdered. But it's you know, I feel like people people gravitate toward cases where they can in their mind say the victim lit up the room, right? Like, so you're perfect, middle class, et cetera, et cetera, et
Yeah,
cetera. Or,
it's the
or
no humans involved theory.
right. And then you have like, because people are not interested, the media is not interested, and because the media is not interested, the politicians aren't interested, and because the politicians aren't interested, they're not putting pressure on the police to solve the cases. And you brought up the no humans involved. I'll never forget when I was a reporter in New York, sitting on a corner in Brooklyn at like 3 a.m, and a cop said to me, NHI. And I was like, oh, we were at a murder scene. I left out that part. And I was like, what does NHI mean? And he said, no humans involved. And I was like, wow. Well, and
Totally.
I asked him, and this, so I don't defame this poor man. I asked him, well, like, what do you mean? And he said, look, if the brass thinks that no one in their mind is important, they know City Hall isn't going to yell at them. So they're going to go pay attention to the cat stuck up in the tree in Upper East Side because one of their friends is going to go yell at the mayor. And so this cop was not endorsing the concept or the
Oh,
idea,
like that.
but it recognizing that it's a real thing. But the thing about that story that stuck out in my head is, as much as I want to beat up the cops for that attitude, I feel like hearing about it from that cop in that moment is really helpful for me, in the sense that I recognize my own responsibility, because it's really, all of this stuff is emanating from what we as the citizens, the voters, actually care about. And I think, escorts or drug addicts or other people like that can sort of end up, just in the way that we cover things and the way that we approach things, they get,
They fall through the cracks.
yeah, or and
She fell through the
dehumanized.
cracks from the time
Dehumanized.
she was born. She was not
Yeah, and we're talking
ever.
about a person who never had a break. When we're
Yeah.
talking about your mom, probably never had a break in life.
The sheriff that I was the one that managed to get her name back to her. Um, can't remember the quote exactly, but it was something along the lines, if it wasn't for bad luck, she wouldn't have had any luck at all.
Right. Well, and I also think about like you and the sheriff as you're talking about this, and I kind of think to myself, like, you you guys are trying to give her the justice in her death that she was never afforded in her life.
Yeah,
And there's something really
absolutely.
awesome about that.
I will fight for her. I will probably piss off the current sheriff again. I'm trying to get him to talk to a scientist that is an amazing woman who I've befriended, who's a DNA scientist and has tried to tell me a little bit more about DNA technology. But as I said earlier, I was a kid, I was an ass, I ditched a lot of school, and she tried to explain MVAC to me,
Hmm.
and it makes enough sense that they could
Yeah.
use the MVAC because they have when they examined her, they were hoping for DNA, and they were able to find the cause of death back in 2007. They haven't buried her again. They don't know when they're going to bury her again, but they were hoping for DNA and they weren't able to get any. But off of, I don't know if it was the rope or the clothes or the boots or what, but they were able to get amplified DNA.
Hmm. Which is just trace amounts of DNA that they then replicate copies of it and copies of it until they can get a usable profile to
Yeah.
test. Yeah.
But it's 10 years old. And I'm like, DNA technology has well advanced since then.
Yeah,
But
both in terms of analysis, extraction, and in terms of the investigative genetic genealogy piece of it, have all gone lightning years. Yeah.
like Othram and there's a bunch of, I've contacted so many, I've forgotten them. That's just the first one I heard about. But all of these places, and a lot of them, there's places that'll do grants to fund it because I know it's a small town. They don't want to pay for this super expensive DNA thing. But I'm like, maybe you could rule out sugar.
Yeah, my listeners actually funded a DNA solves case along with listeners of some other podcasts and donated to have testing done on an unidentified.
I had a GoFundMe for it, and the sheriff actually contacted me and asked me if I'd raised enough, and I found out, thankfully, I hadn't raised enough. But I found out that had I chipped in for it to go to a proper DNA lab, that would have actually, if they'd had someone to prosecute, it would not have been. It would have been biased.
Right, it would have complicated things.
Yeah, and I'm like, I would think it doesn't give me hope that the sheriff didn't know that.
I was going to ask you, so after things were going relatively well, but it sounds like things went downhill with law enforcement. And I think you alluded to this a little bit earlier, so I wanted to ask you about it. But it sounds as if even some of the advocacy is derailed. You made that comment about being banned from certain social media to what's happened in the aftermath since the early stages of identification and then also identification of the suspects.
Okay, so since basically since the suspects were identified, shortly after that, Detective Berkey retired from being a detective. Sheriff Blumendahl had to retire. There was a new sheriff, and I met him once. He didn't seem too interested. I met him once because I came in with a reporter. It was amazing. And then that was in 2016, I think. And that was when they first brought up sugar and peaches. So that sheriff was in for one term, and now there's a new sheriff, and I pissed him off. I didn't mean to piss him off. I was trying. I tell you the same thing I told him. I was trying to light a fire under his ass.
Mm.
They don't like that. Um, but the new sheriff, yeah, I pissed. I had Facebook for her. I had Instagram for her. I had a Reddit page for almost 7 years for her. My Facebook and Instagram, all of a sudden one day, everything gone, poof, banned. No warning, no reason. I tried to make another Facebook, gone immediately. It told me that I was banned permanently for human exploitation. So all of my friends, my contacts, anybody that, I mean, because there's family, people I've known since I was a little kid that are like, "What happened? Where'd she go?" And I can't even respond. I can't even click a Facebook link and look at an article.
Wow.
So it banned me, and then it banned me from Instagram too, which I tried to sneak back on a few times. And you could probably look up hashtag justice for Wilma June Nissen and find something. But I'm banned from there permanently too. Again, human exploitation. So Meta, apparently advocating for a murder is exploiting a human.
And they had like some real significant problems with this in sort of like 5, 6, 7 years ago, where their algorithms were flagging things that may have been advocacy for something and tagging them. And I know people
they won't let you talk to a human. There's no human. I managed to talk to a human, and they were for if you paid for the Facebook Premium or whatever it was. And they're like, "I'm sorry, I can't help you." I'm like, "All right, hopefully nobody in your family gets murdered. Thanks." I was so mad. And then about 6 weeks ago, the Reddit page that I had and been very active on for 7 years almost, all of a sudden it was gone. My name on there was gone. The Reddit page was gone. Poof.
Any idea why? Did
Nope,
you get
just that I was
anything?
banned.
Oh, wow.
I'm
Hmm.
able to, like, I posted in, I think, RBI, r/RBI, and maybe cold cases. You can still look up my mom's case on there, but people are like, "I don't know what happened to her," and I'm trying to respond. I'm going, I can't. Won't let me."
So the social media part of it, advocacy is sort of like gone wild because of the
Yeah,
different bans. And then
it's weird.
the law enforcement relationship has kind of gotten rocky. You said that you weren't
Yeah,
trying.
the new sheriff, he's only been sheriff since January,
Okay.
and I came in there, ready. I had my notebook. I got my, my had my notebook, my notes, all this stuff. I'm like, I want my photos back. Here's the name of a scientist who was a founder of the DNA Doe project, and she's phenomenal. She works with Identifiers Inc. I think it's Identifiers International. Her name is Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick. She'll talk to you. Um, there's a podcast called The Deck, and the Iowa Attorney General had just finally made a cold case deck. And I'm like, will you please talk to this podcast so they can know that they have their facts right and do an episode on my mom? No.
Mm, mm.
The Attorney General's cold case investigator, that they only have like 6 of them for the entire state. And the one that I haven't talked to him since then. And maybe I understood it wrong. I'm not going to say that I wasn't emotional because, I tried to be strong and, badass, and I cried, ugly cried when they would not listen to me. But even afterwards, I called the Iowa Attorney General, Brandenburg's cold case unit investigator for my mom's case. I emailed him and then I talked to him. So when I was talking to him, he said that it would be a while before he could even get to my mom's case because they're, so short staffed. It'd probably be at least a year. And that was in the spring of this year. And then he said something, I don't know if these are the exact words, I just know it floored me, that my mom's case shouldn't even be on their radar
Hmm.
because there's just not enough. And I'm like, it's so close. You're not just from what I know that you know more, you know enough. Who are you protecting? What is going on? So I have to be an angry one woman army and fight for her because nobody else is gonna.
Do you feel sometimes alone in it?
Yeah, I do.
It's just, I just
We,
sort of think of it like, so it's hard enough to lose a parent. It's hard enough to not know a parent, but to learn of a parent after death and still not, and to fight for justice and not be able to get justice for her. And that, as much as the social media stuff is bad, but then to have sort of like law enforcement sort of turn away from you. Now, I understand why, for investigative reasons, sometimes they hold back information, but not engaging in a reasonable way. I just wonder if people pause to sort of like in their head walk in the mile of victims, loved ones' shoes, or even walk 15 minutes,
right.
it just, I mean, it would probably transform the way that they interacted, that it would make all the difference for. And part of the reason why I was asking about that feeling alone is, when law enforcement doesn't engage, or when there isn't someone in a prosecutor's office or a witness or a victim's advocate that's involved, it just becomes more and more isolating because you have to be on the outside of something that, in my mind, is bar none more important to you than anyone else.
Yeah. It is very important to me, and I have people that are close to me that are like, "Why do you care? You never met her." And I'm like, Did I not tell you about the life this poor woman lived?"
Yeah, you'd almost care about her even if she wasn't your mom.
I'm like, and that's exactly it. If you would have lived her life and for her to be, basically dismissed, and I think a lot of it is because she was a sex worker and she didn't have family, she wasn't a local.
Well, and also part of it, like listening to what you're saying, she's your mom. She has such a similar life experience to yours because a lot of us don't have similar life experiences to our parents. Like, just take the foster care system piece of it or the adoption piece of it, or what you were saying about you working in sex work as, when you were in Las Vegas. And you think about all these things and what you're talking about. And I think it's interesting because my first thought when you said that, somebody coming up to you and saying, like, why do you care so much about this? Well, for the same, like, you're so much like her. You just didn't end up in the same position. It's like asking you why you wouldn't care about yourself.
I almost have survivor's guilt, I feel like.
Yeah, like why
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 did
why
I
did
get
my
to live when I made all these stupid, stupid decisions
yeah,
and
and I
she never
made
stood a chance?
all these stupid decisions before I even knew my mom had made those stupid decisions, but for some reason I
Yeah.
got to survive. How do you deal with that? How do you like deal with that sense of like survivor's
Um,
guilt?
Not well. I I I just take it a day at a time, kinda. I mean, like I said, I'm going to therapy, and I contact anybody I can that's ethical that will share her case,
Mm.
and I fight for her. Nobody fought for her when she was alive, so I'm gonna fight for her in her death.
Do you have hope?
I try. Sometimes it's hard. It's exhausting. It's exhausting mentally and physically, and it's infuriating trying to advocate for someone that nobody sounds like sounds awful, but nobody cared about her. She was never reported missing. I mean, the few people that cared about her just figured she ran off. And trying to fight for someone that had no one is the hardest thing I have ever done, and I have done some hard shit.
Can you, I was just thinking as you were saying that, like, imagine how proud she would be to know that there's a daughter who's fighting for her like this.
I don't know. I honestly don't know if she'd be proud.
Yeah.
Uh, I spoke to a long time ago when I was on good terms with the law enforcement,
Mhm.
and they thought she was probably pretty scrappy. And I'm like, they're like, I'm like, you think we would have got along? And they told me, I think she would have fought like crazy because
Oh.
she'd be telling me the same thing I'm telling youngins now. I was like,
Probably. I don't think that precludes pride. I mean, if you think about it, like, you know,
she
I think,
deserves someone to fight for her.
right. And I think sometimes parents, when they make mistakes, just like you, will think they've sort of like cursed their kids or whatever it is. I suspect that if she were looking down and she were able to see that her daughter was like this and that her daughter was this strong and was fighting and this persistent and this, willing to push, I can't imagine that there would be anything other than,
I'm
um,
just stubborn.
yeah. Well, and also something that we didn't see a lot in her life, which was like, you love her. You're showing your love.
Yeah.
She didn't get a lot of that.
I wish I could tell her that. I wish I I wish I could tell her. I mean, I would be awesome. And I can't have kids, so like, oh, really?
Hmm.
Sorry. I'm just
You're fine.
it's so exhausting. I was listening actually to your I was binging your podcast all day, and and I heard I was listening to the one about ethical podcasting
Mhm.
and the OJ case and the
Kim Goldman. Yeah, in that episode, Julia Cowley talks about Kim Goldman and hearing her talk. I remember that one.
she quoted her saying something like, "I don't want to do these podcasts. I don't want to do these interviews, but I have to." And that really struck a nerve with me because I have done so many podcasts and talked to so many YouTubers, and I will continue to do so. Do I want to do them? No. Is this about me? No. But it needs to be done because if I don't fight for her, no one will.
And at least somebody finally is, right? There's something to be said for that. I mean, I had a friend who died in September. And one of the
So
things,
sorry.
yeah, yeah, it was hard. And, one of the things about that friend that was really interesting, really rough life. Probably never had a break, but in the last few months of her life, she was doing really good. And there was such an outpouring of love after she died. And one of the things, I was really grateful that she died after having so many happy months. But I was like, I wish you could have stayed a day longer to see this, to see the like parade that's happening right now, to see the people like marching with your love. And I almost wish your mom could just like get one glimpse
Yeah.
of the fight that you're fighting for her. And, you know, it,
Yeah. I
it,
get that. I wish that she could know that I don't resent her for giving me up. I love her and everybody, almost everybody. I'm her first foster family not included, but almost everybody failed her, and I refuse to fail her. I love her, and I will fight for her, even though nobody else would. And I wish she could know that. And I'm hoping that there's an afterlife, and in that afterlife, I can hug her and be like, "Hey, fought for you."
I'm curious for you, like, just as we're wrapping up, I was thinking about like, there is a lot of wisdom in what you're saying about a lot of different things. But there are a couple things that kind of jumped out to me. Like one, your willingness to be like vulnerable with your own story and your own life. Um, we were talking earlier in the episode about how people try to mask and hide things. It's not every day somebody comes onto the podcast and starts talking about, or any podcast and starts, well, maybe my podcast, but or any podcast talking about their stupid life decisions. And it's not every day that I think, you know, someone is able to sort of like advocate for their cause, but also see the broader picture and the impact on other people. And I'm just thinking from the two sort of things, and as we wrap, like one, I'm curious about like what message would you have for like the other daughters, sisters, sons, other loved ones in some other way, the the person, whoever the person is, for somebody who's been murdered, or who's gone missing. And then the second thing I'm curious about is like, if someone from law enforcement who wanted to do this better when it comes to dealing with victims' families, if somebody who wanted to do it better was in front of you, what advice would you have for them?
All right. For a family member of a victim, don't give up. Fight. Keep fighting. It's going to be the hardest thing you ever do. It's going to be exhausting. It's going to be mentally and physically painful, but don't give up. And for anybody in law enforcement, if there was someone in law enforcement, stay in contact. Treat the family member. Don't treat the family member like they're a nuisance or, some tabloid reporter. They're a family member and they just want to know that you're doing something. I asked, can I help in some way? And like, 'cause there used to be a tip line and a whole page dedicated to my mom's case, and it's gone. And so all the links to submit a tip and the reward are gone. And you click on that link, and there's no their tip line for my mom's case now completely gone. There is a tip line, but it's only online, and you fill out an online tip form, and it's not monitored.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So for law enforcement, it would be keep in contact with the family. Be open. I know you can't say everything, but show them you care. Treat them like people.
Hint to them that you're still working it, right? I remember someone saying to me that, like, even if you need to just call me to tell you that there's nothing that you can tell
Yeah,
me, that
yeah.
tells me you're still
I,
focused on the case.
I actually said that on that when I had the ugly cry and pissed off the current uh, powers that be there. I told them, I'm like, can you just call me or email me every month or 6 weeks, even if it's to tell me F off.
Right.
Just hey, there's nothing new. Go F yourself. I don't care. Just
Just let me know
uh,
you're thinking about the case.
yeah.
Mhm.
The current detective, I thought she hated me, but she has actually been she's been nicer since I met her. I'm good with her. I just
You're
I need
just
the sheriff
carrying
to know
some,
that.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
carrying some sort of PTSD from the other interactions.
The other interactions have not been very friendly. And I'm not trying to be mean or say that law enforcement is bad or anything. I need them to understand that I get there's priorities. If there's a crime happening or someone's being assaulted, yes, of course, handle that first. But if you're sitting around having coffee and donuts, maybe look up something on my mom's case while you're doing it.
I
I'll
got
bring
ano
you donuts.
I got another, question for you. Like, when you sit back and sort of, like, close your eyes and think in your sort of, like, hopes and dreams about how this all ends, what do you imagine?
That is a very good question. I don't know because I don't know how it's going to end, and it hasn't happened. I hope that they'll find the person that did it still alive. In a perfect world, it wouldn't happen, but it did. It's not my perfect world. I would hope to find the person. They find the person that did it, and they prosecute. Even though that there's no such thing as closure for this, there is no such thing as justice. She's been dead for my entire life. I'm 48. She's been dead for 47 years. There is no justice, but I would like a semblance of justice, and I would like an explanation from the person that did it. Why? Why did you have to take this poor woman whose life was nothing but crap and end it? Because it sure the hell wasn't a mercy.
Yeah. You might get an answer, but I don't know that you'll ever get anything that's adequate, but at least you deserve an answer.
I
I
would like.
am.
I want to know why.
It's an interesting point too. Like, we talk a lot. Like, you really made me think about something because we talk a lot about like bringing justice for victims, but when it comes to murder, there really is no justice. We're just aiming for like the closest thing to it because justice would have been for them to have never been taken from their loved ones, from the earth, from their life.
And in such a horribly violent manner. Like I said, they won't say the cause of death. They're hoping for a deathbed confession, which I don't see happening. But it's just all I can find, and all I've been told is it was very specific and extremely brutal. I mean, she didn't have a face. Her jaw, lower jaw, was gone, not from animals. That is horrific. Why?
Do you think any answer would be adequate?
Nothing's gonna bring her back. Nothing's gonna change it. There might be an answer that makes it a little bit less, like, I don't know. Like I said, I can't answer. That's in the future. I don't know if I'll ever even know who did it. I hope I hope to know, and I hope to know in the near future. But I don't see that happening.
I hope you find out soon.
Yeah. I'm hoping the sheriff put in a request for season of justice, because they're amazing, and they do grants for DNA to be taken to high tech labs. And
You know, I'm really tempted at this particular moment to think about, like, I hope that the case is resolved for your healing, but it sounds like your healing began a long time ago. So you're already on that course one way or the other. I would just on that. No, no. I used to think that progress in life was linear, but when I went off to outpatient therapy, what was that for? I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah. That was at a psychiatric hospital in Canaan, Connecticut. We were sitting down in art therapy, and our art therapy was talking to us. I don't know if they were talking about like mental health recovery or substance abuse recovery. It must have been mental health recovery. And they asked us to draw it and visualize it. And I drew mountains with really deep valleys and big peaks, and deep valleys and big peaks. But the art professor said something about me, that I recognize that there are peaks, but there will be valleys before we reach higher peaks. But she said, did you notice all your peaks get a little bit higher and all your valleys get a little deeper? I say all this to simply say that, like, progress is not about perfection, and it's not about making mistakes. It's about just getting to higher peaks. And your trajectory looks good to me. So.
Believe me, I have my issues, and I have I take medication. I'll admit it.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's better than being completely out of my mind.
Yeah. Would definitely rather roll with the people who are taking their meds as opposed to ones who haven't. Anyway, I hope for justice for you. I hope that people who are listening can get some ideas here about how they can be helpful, how they can be more kind or helpful to families, about where they can advocate for things. And I hope, for a lot of the people who are going through similar forms of suffering, that they can get some, it kind of goes full circle back to what we were talking about toward the beginning, which is that, like, ultimately, the one thing that we share in common
Suffering.
is suffering. Yep, it's suffering. Anyway, my friend, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Definitely.
I really appreciate it.
We will stay in touch on this journey. Thanks for joining me for this conversation with Krissi. If you would like to join us for more discussions with me and other listeners, we can be found on most social media platforms, including a listener-run Facebook group called the Silver Linings Fireside Chat. For deeper conversations with our guests and live conversations with other listeners, you can also join us on our Patreon at www.patreon.com/The Silver Linings Handbook. I'm Jason Blair, and this is the Silver Linings Handbook podcast. We'll see you all again soon.